The Las Vegas Aces just got exposed in the most humiliating way possible, and A'ja Wilson's dirty tactics backfired spectacularly. What started as their MVP celebration night turned into complete chaos when the Indiana Fever demolished them on their home court. But here's what nobody's talking about. The Aces resorted to shoving, elbowing, and flopping like a desperate high school team, and it all got caught on camera. Before we dive into how Kelsey Mitchell absolutely silenced the entire Vegas arena with revenge shots that had the crowd stunned, drop a comment with Fever if you think the refs let Vegas get away with murder in this game. This was supposed to be A'ja Wilson's coronation night. Hours before tip-off, she held that MVP trophy high, the Vegas crowd roaring, the media already writing their championship stories. The Aces were 20-point favorites according to most betting lines, and analysts were calling this series a formality. But something shifted the moment that ball went up. The Indiana Fever, missing 6 players including their star Caitlin Clark, who's been dealing with ongoing injury concerns this 2025 season, came out like they had nothing to lose, and that's when Vegas started panicking. What happened next would shock everyone watching. Instead of playing championship basketball, A'ja Wilson started throwing elbows away from the ball. Not subtle ones either. We're talking full extension, deliberate contact that had nothing to do with making a play. The replay showed her shoving Lexi Hull on at least 3 separate possessions, including one where she literally pushed her to the ground during a dead ball. The ref somehow missed it, or chose to ignore it, but the cameras caught everything. And this wasn't just physical play, this was desperation disguised as toughness. But that wasn't even the worst part. The flopping started in the second quarter when Vegas realized their usual game wasn't working. A'ja Wilson threw herself backward like she'd been hit by a truck when Aliyah Boston barely grazed her shoulder. Jackie Young started selling contact that didn't exist, falling dramatically on screens where the Fever players hadn't even made contact yet. At one point, Wilson hooked Hull's arm on a rebound attempt, then threw herself to the ground, claiming she was fouled. The replay showed Hull standing completely still with her hands straight up. It was embarrassing to watch the supposed best team in the league resort to these playground tactics. The turning point came when Kelsey Mitchell decided she'd had enough. After getting shoved into Wilson on a drive and somehow getting called for a technical foul after the review. Yes, you heard that right. Mitchell got the tech for being the victim of a shove. She went absolutely nuclear. 23 points in the second half alone, including 4 consecutive 3-pointers that had the Vegas crowd sitting in stunned silence. Each shot felt like payback for every cheap shot, every flop, every dirty play the Aces had tried. Mitchell finished with 34 points, a playoff career high, and she did it while being grabbed, held, and shoved the entire game. Here's where it gets really interesting though. The latest reports from January 2025 show that multiple WNBA coaches have been privately complaining about Vegas getting preferential treatment from officials all season. One Eastern Conference coach who requested anonymity said the Aces have been getting away with moving screens and excessive physical play for years, but it's gotten worse this season. The numbers back it up too. Vegas averaged the fewest fouls called against them per game despite playing one of the most physical styles in the league. But against Indiana, even with the refs letting them get away with murder, they still lost by 16 points. What really exposed the Aces was how they responded to adversity. When Odyssey Sims started cooking them with her speed, they tried to slow her down with hip checks and grab fouls. When Aliyah Boston dominated the paint with clean fundamental post moves, they started flopping to try to get her in foul trouble. When Alyssa Smith crashed the boards, they resorted to boxing out with elbows high, trying to intimidate rather than compete. Every dirty tactic they tried just motivated Indiana more. The Fever smiled through the contact, helped each other up after hard fouls, and kept pushing the pace until Vegas was gasping for air. The psychological warfare backfired completely. Remember, this Indiana team was missing Caitlin Clark, who's been their offensive engine all season before her recent injury setback. They were without Sophie Cunningham, one of their best 3-point shooters, who's also dealing with health issues in 2025. 6 players total were out, and Vegas still couldn't handle them. That's not just losing a game, that's getting exposed as mentally weak when facing real adversity. Like and subscribe if you want to see more breakdowns of how the supposed best teams crumble under pressure. Becky Hammon's post-game comments were telling. She admitted her team died on screens and didn't show second and third efforts, but she conveniently left out the dirty play everyone saw. She didn't mention Wilson's elbows, Young's flops, or the constant shoving that turned this into a street fight instead of a basketball game. The coach who said Indiana hadn't seen the real aces yet watched her team show their real character, and it wasn't championship material. It was desperate, frustrated, and frankly pathetic for a team with that much talent. The stats tell the real story of domination. Indiana shot 51% from the field while holding Vegas to 38%. The Fever had 28 assists to Vegas's 15, showing they moved the ball while the Aces played hero ball. But the most damning stat, Indiana had more points in the paint despite Vegas supposedly having the size advantage. When you're getting out-muscled by a depleted roster while resorting to cheap shots, you've already lost more than just the game. What's fascinating is how this connects to the bigger picture in 2025. The Aces have been struggling with chemistry issues all season, despite what the media wants you to believe. Sources close to the team say there's been tension about shot distribution, with Wilson demanding more touches even when she's being doubled. The dirty play against Indiana wasn't just frustration about one game, it was months of built-up pressure finally exploding in the worst possible way. And now they're down 0-1 in a series where 72% of teams who win Game 1 advance. The league office needs to address this immediately. The footage is undeniable. Elbows being thrown, players being shoved to the ground, blatant flopping that would make soccer players blush. If the WNBA wants to be taken seriously as it continues growing in 2025, they can't let their supposed marquee franchise play like this in the playoffs. Fans are already calling for suspensions, and former players on social media are roasting Vegas for abandoning actual basketball when things got tough. But here's what really matters. Indiana didn't just beat Vegas, they exposed them. They showed that when you take away the favorable calls, when you match their physicality without backing down, when you don't buy into the hype, the Aces fold like a cheap tent. Kelsey Mitchell's performance wasn't just about scoring points. It was about sending a message that the Fever won't be bullied, intimidated, or disrespected. Every three-pointer was a statement, every drive to the basket was defiance, every smile after a hard foul was psychological warfare done right. The aftermath has been explosive. Vegas fans are in complete denial, claiming the refs were against them despite video evidence showing the opposite. Meanwhile, Indiana fans are celebrating not just a win, but validation after being disrespected all week. The national media who picked Vegas to sweep are scrambling to explain how they got it so wrong, and Aliyah Wilson, who was supposed to be celebrating her MVP trophy, is instead trying to explain why her team looked so undisciplined and desperate. Looking ahead to Game 2, the pressure is entirely on Vegas now. They can't play the underdog card, can't claim they were caught off guard, can't hide behind injuries like Indiana could. If they come out playing dirty again, the refs will be watching more closely after the backlash from Game 1. If they try to play straight up, they've already shown they might not be good enough. It's a lose-lose situation they created for themselves by abandoning championship-level basketball for Bush League tactics. The real question now is whether Vegas can recover mentally from this embarrassment. Getting beat is one thing, but getting exposed as front runners who resort to dirty play when challenged? That's the kind of loss that can define a series and destroy a legacy. Aliyah Wilson went from MVP to the player everyone's calling out for cheap shots. The Aces went from dynasty to desperate in one game, and the Indiana Fever, depleted and disrespected, just proved that heart beats hype every single time when it matters most.